Hi there, folks, and welcome to Mama Reads Grief. My name is Sonia McHugh, and a little bit about myself. I'm married to Mike McHugh, 18 years in October, and together we have 5 beautiful children, one of which is in heaven. That brings me to why I'm here today. It's been a while since Garrett has passed. 12 years. He will be 13 in February. And in these 13 years, I've managed to put together a story of my experience with him in the beginning so that I would not forget. But what I did not understand was writing is very therapeutic. So I want today to open up my story and share with you folks a little insight of one mother's grief and how it's affected, molded who I am. I will try not to ramble or use the word excessively. I do tend to do that. I'm just starting now with reading. I wrote this story, probably started this story around 4 or 5 days out. We had come home from the hospital and I didn't have my baby. And I already had 2 children, but I didn't have my baby. At that point, I didn't want to forget. I didn't want to forget anything. I knew one day I would have more children and they'd want to know who Garrett was. And I didn't want to forget any part of what we shared. I want to preface just a little bit. It's been almost 13 years and I can at this point relive some of those memories without the tears and the boo-hoos and all of that. I'm a little hesitant to be so open. I do not want to appear calloused. I don't want to appear uncaring. But I've learned a lot of things in 13 years. And I may or I may not cry. I don't know. We'll find out together. I'm just going to start at the beginning. For the time being, I'm going to be reading from my computer. I've put this off for so long. I just wanted to jump in. And start somewhere. So I'm going to read from my computer. In a while, I want to have a paper version. I just like paper. And be able to read and turn the pages together. So let's just read. There comes a time in every person's life that they have to step back and assess the situation. You know, look at the choices they've made. Reflect on the results that have come. Take inventory, so to say. Well, that time came for me in June of 2006. Life had just taken some big turns, some planned and some not planned. Mike was in transition from one job to another. We just had our second child, and lo and behold, what do you know? I'm pregnant again. Have you ever heard the saying that life's a roller coaster? Sure you have. We all have. A series of ups and downs and twists and turns. So let's take a step back and get on the ride together, shall we? In October of 2001, October 6th to be exact, I married the man of my heart, one Mr. James Michael McHugh, aka Mike. Ours is not a marriage of bliss and total harmony. We do not have that sickening, ooey-gooey kind of love. Our marriage, our life is one of reality, and I like it that way. So we started out happy and in love, and happy to be in love. Then the kids started coming. We had our first daughter, Hannah Rose Christine, in April of 2003. Our firstborn, the joy of our hearts, and the standard bearer of our lives. What this one hasn't taught us, let's just say that we've learned just as much from her as she's learned from us, if not more. So then we were a family of 3. Oh, the joy and stress and outright fatigue of parenting. It was so rewarding, we decided to do it again. In October of 2004, we found out that I was pregnant for the second time. We couldn't have been happier. We were expanding our happy little family from a modest 3 to a generous 4. However, in December of 2004, tragedy struck. While out Christmas shopping with my sister, I began to spot bleed. We rushed to the nearest hospital only to have confirmed to us that I was miscarrying. There was nothing they could do but send me home to wait out the process. I miscarried my second child the following day, December 18th, on my birthday. That pregnancy was followed by another miscarriage 2 months later in February of 2005. We named both of those babies Jordan and Alex, gender-neutral names, but still names for the lives with which God had blessed us. Then, in May of 2005, we found out that we were yet again expecting a baby. This one would go full term and be the blessing that we this day call Gabriel Michael Scott. Born on February 6th, 2006, Gabe is one of the many joys that our hearts hold. Woo! Now we were cruising. We finally achieved the number 4. We had made it. We were tired. A little outside noise. We had made it. We were tired and we were happy. Gabriel was just 8 weeks old when the moment struck. Mike looked at me and said, "How are you feeling?" I replied with, "I'm feeling fine." Romance ensued, and then we realized we were proceeding in a less than protected state. It had been 10 months since we had thought of protecting, and we were unprepared. I said. What can happen? It's not like we're teenagers. It can't happen just this once. The one and only time in 5 years that we threw caution to the wind. Yep, you guessed it. The wind blew back a bundle. I found out I was pregnant in June of 2006. What a shock this was. Gabriel had just turned 3 months old. My mind was reeling. I had a 3-year-old, a 3-month-old, and I was expecting again. At first I was scared, overwhelmed, panicky. I wasn't sure how I was going to handle everything. Then I began to warm to the idea. Of course I was excited, still shocked. I'm going to remove my glasses. I can't read paper, but I can read better from a glance. Let's see. Of course I was excited, still shocked. But bear with me, please. But also quite excited. The first thing we always did when we realized I was pregnant, we decided on a name. We had at that time picked out Lillian for a girl and Garrett for a boy. The big decision was made. I went to the doctor at the 9-week mark and he gave me a due date of February 26th, 2007. That was just 2 weeks after Gabriel's first birthday. Then Hannah would be turning 4 in April. So I was looking forward to having a 3-year-old, a 1-year-old, and a newborn in my home all at the same time. My pregnancy was a perfect one. It played out the same as the other 2. Morning sickness started in around week 4 or 5 and increased as time went on. I was already used to that, however. I had the typical issues as I got bigger. That round ligament always troubled me. This would be a ligament running under the belly, down the inside of both legs. Mamas, can you testify? You never know it's there until it starts to hurt. Then walking is next to impossible. My hips hurt, there was always the heartburn, and I had restless leg syndrome so bad that I couldn't even get to sleep most nights before 2 in the morning. All in all, though, this pregnancy, like others, was a glorious and beautiful time of my life. I loved being pregnant. I truly do miss it. I loved the way it looked, the way it felt. Little insert, 5 children later, at the age of 43. If I could just be pregnant again, I'd do it. But no 3-year-olds, so I'm good. I even loved the comments and remarks made in the end. I loved feeling my baby's every move in my belly. How truly amazing to feel and know that my baby was growing within me. Sure, it becomes tiresome and frustrating. Yes, it was exhausting. And when I was so close to delivering that I felt as if my baby was going to drop out of my uterus right there on the floor beneath me, I got pretty irritable. Can I get an amen, women? But I could endure that and so much more just to see that precious little gift enter my world. Wow, what a gift. There was nothing at all like the physical feeling I experienced when I gave that final push and that gorgeous baby came out. The relief was sensational, and in an instant, all of the pain and long months of waiting was very much worth it. Everything was just that way this time. I made sure to go to all of my appointments. I never missed or postponed even one. I did everything my doctor told me to do and brought all my concerns to him immediately. All seemed quite normal in this pregnancy, just like the others. We had our official ultrasound at week 18. We were assured, within the certainty that any doctor can give you, that we were having a boy. Aha! Garrett it was then. We were thrilled to inform our family that we would be bringing home one said Garrett Stephen James. The ultrasound technician was very calm and even, so reassuring through the whole appointment. She showed us every part of Garrett and talked us through everything she was viewing. At the end of my appointment, she said, without alarm or concern, that because of the way he was lying, she couldn't see all of his heart. She said that we would need to schedule another ultrasound with the doctor. Still yet, we weren't worried. We joked about Garrett being stubborn, like his daddy, and went on our way. I went to my next checkup, but I didn't say anything to my doctor. Thinking if there were any real concerns, he would mention it to me first. I made my next appointment and left. At the following appointment, as I was leaving, my doctor stopped me and asked if I had the second ultrasound yet. I told him no, that I hadn't. I wasn't even thinking about it at all, considering 2 months had gone by since my first ultrasound. I set up the second ultrasound for the 22nd of December, still not feeling any red flags. I went to that appointment and saw my baby on screen again. He looked so perfect. I, of course, didn't know what I would be looking for if I even thought to look. Give me a drink. Just a little query for my son. I need a drink.
Hey.
So I set up the second ultrasound. I said that. Of course, I didn't know what I would be looking for, even if I thought to look. Before we left the office, the technician told us how far along I was, Garrett's weight, and the percentile he was in. You know what they say, hindsight is 20/20. When I look back now, I don't know why I didn't see any red flags going up. The technician made Mike and I feel so assured that we never dreamed anything was wrong. We simply thought that the first time she saw Garrett, he was lying in an odd position and she couldn't see all parts of his heart. After all, that is what she told us. So we were with the impression that she saw what she needed, told us of Garrett's good health, and would have been more concerned if anything was out of the ordinary. Like I said, hindsight is 20/20. This is all the technician did, day in and day out. She looked at these ultrasound screens. She saw babies weekly, if not daily. She knew exactly what she was looking at and precisely what she saw. Even if she did see something that concerned her at the time, she wouldn't be in a position to tell us. She was not the doctor. I realized that perfectly afterward. Excuse me, please. If anything, I want to be real. And really, I was thirsty. Where was I? Even if she did see something that concerned her at the time, she would not be in a position to tell us. She was not the doctor. I realized that perfectly afterward. So as I said, that was December 22nd, 3 days before Christmas, on a Friday to be exact. I remember so well because the next day, Saturday, was our family Christmas party. The following Monday was Christmas. God worked it out that we would have a beautiful Christmas together. No worries, just joy. Yes, it was definitely God's hand. You see, it was just that next Tuesday, December 26th, that my doctor called me back with the results. On the morning of December 26th, around 9 in the morning, my sister called to tell me that my doctor was unable to reach me. We had moved in February, right after Gabe was born, and I had forgotten to give his office our new number. So a little phone tag ensued, and my doctor promptly got back to me. My heart began to race when I heard his voice. I knew he wasn't calling for just any reason. I knew it was directly linked to the ultrasound. My doctor told me that the ultrasound technician had found lost my place. My doctor told me that the ultrasound technician had found what she thought looked like an abnormality. She thought it was a possible coarctation. In just one phone call, my entire life changed. My world tilted on its side, and everything kind of jumbled together. Oh, it was a big, jumbled mess. Immediate fear seized me, and I began to overreact. A coarc what? I didn't understand. I had heard his heart beating myself. Nice and strong, beautiful. That is what the doctor said each time he heard Garrett's heart. How could there possibly be something wrong with it? He wanted to know if I could go to St. Anthony's Hospital to the perinatal office. They were aware that I would be coming in, and they would just look at my baby's heart and check everything again. It could still be that they were not seeing all parts yet. Maybe Garrett was still just lying oddly. I knew though. There wouldn't be this much concern at this point if all was fine. I began to cry. His heart, how could that be? No, I had to stop myself from overreacting too much. I needed to keep it together until I knew for certain. I would deal with it then, and then only if. Hope resounded. I called my sister and told her that I needed to get to the hospital as soon as possible. I had an appointment at 11 a.m. and it was 9 a.m. already. I called Mike and, biting back tears, shakily told him everything the doctor had told me. I assured him that it would be all right, told him that he didn't need to leave work, that Carolyn would take me to the appointment, and I would call him as soon as I knew anything. Here's where I got on this roller coaster ride. A ride that I began on December 26th, 2007 at 9 o'clock in the morning. When I had my first baby, Hannah, I was always terrified of SIDS. I would constantly check on her and rouse her in her sleep if I thought I couldn't see her breathe. I didn't get any better with Gabriel. I was just as panicky, just as fearful. I would pray every day, and still do, that God would keep them safe and healthy, that they would get saved at a young age and grow up to serve Him in whatever capacity that was for them. I even pray that God would prepare my heart for the time to come if serving Him means somewhere far away from me and their daddy. I would think to myself, what would I do if something happened to them? How do other mothers survive such tragedy? I could never do that. The truth is that you don't know what you can do until you're actually standing face to face with that situation. And then you might surprise yourself. So Carolyn came straight over to my house and drove me to the hospital. We went right up to the perinatal unit, and I signed myself in. I'm so glad I had someone with me. I'm even more thankful that that someone was Carolyn. She offered me a source of strength that I needed at the time. We waited for over an hour before they called my name. I followed the nurse into the room and made ready for yet another ultrasound. I was hoping beyond hope that she would proceed with the ultrasound, finish up, smile sweetly, and assure me that everything was perfectly normal. Maybe she would even chuckle a bit, just to emphasize my relief at knowing that Garrett was just a stubborn little guy who was simply hiding parts of himself from our view. I would sigh heavily, crack a few jokes, and leave the hospital giddy and ready to pass on my good news. Oh, how I wish. Instead, she did the ultrasound, telling me everything she was looking for. And when she was finished, she brought the doctor in to confirm her findings. Yes, my world was tilting again. Somehow, the room managed to spin quickly in half circles back and forth while I sat still on the examining bed. That is when I met Dr. Moore. She was the perinatologist on duty. She was a very sweet, compassionate, and thorough doctor. She was so empathetic as she proceeded to tell me that my baby had a heart defect that she was pretty sure to be hypoplastic left heart syndrome, as well as a possible coarctation. There was that word again. Coarctation and hypoplastic heart. What did this mean? Bottom line, would my baby be all right? She assured me that this was a very fixable deformity, and that we have one of the best pediatric heart surgeons in the country right here in St. Louis. I heard it, all of it. Every word the doctor said, I clung to. I did not understand any of it. She certainly wasn't talking about my baby. My babies were healthy. Facts. I gave birth to 2 8-pound babies, for crying out loud. Not ill, struggling for life, in need of immediate and drastic attention. Healthy, fat, beautiful, perfect. Those were my babies, not sick. No, not my baby. Somehow this just wasn't as bad as it sounded. It would be all right. I knew it was all right. I mean, 2 ultrasound, let me back up. It would be all right. I knew that it was real. I mean, 2 ultrasound technicians and 2 very good and competent doctors had all confirmed and agreed that Garrett's heart was sick, but it was fixable. By God's grace and the skilled hands of the doctors in charge, my baby's heart would be fixed. It had to be. That is what I held on to. I knew so long that Garrett was inside my belly that he would be okay. After all, I was doing all of the hard work. He was just kicked back, relaxing, and living off the fat of the land. Again, I say it. I knew this was real. It was not only real, but very serious. I understand all of that. I just didn't go beyond serious. What lay ahead was indescribable. To say that it was rough is a gross understatement. I just held on to the fact that this problem could be fixed. God wouldn't take my baby, so everything would be all right. A heart defect. Our baby's heart was sick. How would I ever tell Mike, and how would he take it? I had underestimated my husband for a long time. I have learned so much about him through all of this. So Carolyn took me over to Mike's work, and I sat down with him and explained the situation. Garrett's heart was sick. Even as I write it now, part of it doesn't seem real to me. I told him everything the doctor told me, and Carolyn filled in the gaps when I couldn't finish. The next morning, the pediatric cardiologist called and wanted to see me right away. All of the doctors were so good about getting in touch with me quickly. They never left us wondering or guessing. They were so good to answer any and all of our questions. Dr. Gold's office called, and I set up an appointment for that day. He was the pediatric cardiologist that would be taking over the care of Garrett's heart after surgery, and I was assured there would be surgery. I went to Dr. Gold's office that day so he could confirm Garrett's condition himself. Again, I laid back on a table to prepare for another ultrasound. After what seemed like an eternity of the doctor pushing on my belly with that ultrasound wand, he sat down in front of Mike and I with pencil and paper in hand. This was his way, so he explained, to be very descriptive so as to thoroughly explain what he saw. And so that is what he did. Very sensitively, he began to draw a picture of the heart and explain to us that our son did not have hypoplastic left heart syndrome. He actually had what was called AV canal. He might as well have spoken to me in French, for all that I understood him. Thank God he believed in being descriptive. However, by the time he was finished talking to us, I was fully aware that my son had a heart condition in which all 4 chambers of the heart did not form to separate the heart. This left Garrett basically a big hole in his heart, as well as the possible coarctation. The coarctation meant that the aorta was too narrow for the blood to flow through. Now, not only was my son going to be born with a very sick heart, but his particular heart deformity put him in a 25 to 50% chance of being Down syndrome as well. The possible Down syndrome didn't scare me. I've always believed that God allows Down syndrome so that he can still have pure and innocent people in this world. A very special group of people who wholly love and give and care. Though the thought of Garrett being Down syndrome didn't excite me, I believed I could handle it if he were. Knowing how I felt about Down syndrome, and with it being so late in my pregnancy already, I opted not to do the amniocentesis. I would find out soon enough. Goodness, what a ride to be on. How many more changes can there be? How many questions did I have? How can I put into words what I was feeling? I just found out that my baby had at that very moment, even as I carried him within me in an incomplete heart. I guess I felt confused. I know the first thing I felt was fear. However, I would not give in to that. No, definitely not. Show no fear. To do that would be weakness. After all, I had complete and total faith that God was going to heal my baby, or at least give the doctors wisdom and grace to fix him. No weakness. I would be strong. I cried only once at the hospital that Tuesday that I found out. It is strange that I use the word is it strange? Yeah. Is it strange that I use the word confused as one description of how I felt? Maybe I'm not normal, but I did feel confused. I was not confused by all of the medicinal terms, the medical terms that they used. I was beginning to understand them, and quickly too. I had to repeat it all so many times. No, I felt confused over how to respond to this situation. Confused about wanting to cry and worry, but going days without even thinking about it. I don't think I make sense, but I know I do. I think that is just part of the process, of dealing with it. I know I felt sadness, of course, and a whole slew of other emotions, so many feelings to sort through. I began a regimen of weekly trips to the hospital for ultrasounds and heart tests on my son. I had to switch doctors from Dr. Baveri to Dr. Moore. This was difficult for me to handle. Not that I didn't like this new doctor. She was very kind and good with me. It was just that Dr. Baveri had seen me through the care and safe delivery of both of my babies and 2 miscarriages in between. So to move from him to another doctor, any doctor, was not an easy thing to do. He proved himself to be a very understanding and compassionate doctor, though. He was so quick in seeing that I had the best care for Garrett. He had already called the hospital when he confirmed the technician's findings. When I had to change doctors, he had already spoken with the new doctor. God put all of the right people in just the right places. Everyone I needed to take care of me and my Garrett were amazing. On Tuesday after Christmas, the perinatal unit was supposed to be closed, but for some reason it was scheduled to be open. Dr. Moore was supposed to have that day off, but had to come in, and as it was, the unit was fully booked that day, but they had a cancellation just that morning. God had seen to so many things like that, things that others might just call a fluke or coincidence. I know it was God taking care of me and my baby. There's a lot about what took place in Garrett's life that I don't understand, but one thing that I do know for sure is that God loves me. I went through the next 2 months with a lot of anxiety, trepidation, and sadness. A lot of those feelings I focused on my daughter. I think this might be a common way of dealing with stress or a highly emotional situation in one's life. My energies and worries and fears were all focused on my 3.5-year-old daughter and the trial I was going through with her. It was more constructive, more tangible to focus on what was there in front of me and put off Garrett's heart until later. It was just so easy to keep my mind busy with other worries. He was inside my belly, in the safest place possible. I felt that until he joined me out here in this world, nothing could harm him. I just had to keep him in there as long as possible. As I said earlier, the end of my pregnancies, like all pregnancies, grew increasingly difficult. With Gabriel, I was so uncomfortable, and everything hurt so much that I was extremely ready to meet him face to face. Then I did, and the postpartum depression hit me hard. It was scary, and I didn't know what to do. Now I was expecting Garrett, and I was concerned about how I was going to handle 2 babies so close together, worried about surviving intense baby blues, and to top it all off, we had his heart condition to deal with. So long that he was inside my belly, I knew he was going to be all right. It isn't at all that I didn't want to have Garrett. Oh yes, I was dealing with a tirade of emotions, but I wanted him. As soon as I knew he was there, I wanted him. There was just one thought I had for the following 2 months. How long can I keep him right there? Yes, I was scared to give birth, scared out of my ever-loving mind. Not just scared of how I was going to handle all of this, but scared of all the what ifs and possibilities. It was so much easier to put off the what ifs and focus on the day to day. So there we were, through the holidays and right up to the end of my pregnancy. I had made it safely into February. See if you can get this cord to run to the outlet, please. Okay, pardon me. I just need to plug in.
Hey.
Life, right?
You're fine.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna keep reading while he does that. Plug that in down there. Let's see if we can reach.
All right.
So we don't lose power. All right. Stay with me, folks. We're gonna get there. All of us together to the end.
Yeah.
So there we were, through the holidays and right up to the end of my pregnancy. I had made it safely into February. No new news was given, and I was just waiting for the big day to come. Now remember, I said Gabriel's birthday was in February. On Monday of that week, we all went to Mike's family's for Gabe's big day. I had a big deal first birthday for him there, and we would do his big first with my family on the weekend. I went to bed late that night, or rather early the next morning. I don't believe I got to sleep before 2 a.m. that morning. And the next day, Tuesday, February 6th, 2006, actually that would have been 2007. Let me back up. And the next day, Tuesday, February 6th, 2007, just happened to be Gabriel's day. I knew when I finally fell off to sleep that I was beginning labor. I wasn't too concerned about it since I had already been having Braxton Hicks contractions for about a month. I was scheduled to be induced on February 19th. This was just a precaution to ensure that everything and everyone would be in place. Garrett would need to be officially diagnosed, which meant Dr. Bull had to be there. They would need to have the neonatal ICU ready to receive him and, of course, be prepared for any other possibilities. Now, this new due date was 1 week before my actual due date, and the 6th came 2 weeks before that. When I woke that morning, I thought that I was in labor, but I wasn't in any real pain, just really uncomfortable. I was achy, irritable, experiencing slight contractions, and kind of sick to my stomach. I knew, though, this was my 3rd child already. And I knew the beginning signs of labor. It was then that I knew this baby was coming, and a whole lot sooner than I originally thought. I feel guilty for my feelings at that time. By noon that Tuesday, I knew that Garrett would be born within the next 2 days. That terrified me. I wasn't ready for him. I guess he was ready for me, though. I called the doctor's office, and her nurse told me to go to the hospital. I can't explain what I felt at that moment. I was terrified. I know I already said that, but there was no other way to express it. I was not ready to let him out yet. I wanted to keep him as close to me as I possibly could, and how much closer could I get than to carry him inside? I was not scared of my son. I was and am so very thrilled with Garrett. Garrett is unbelievably precious to me, precious from the very beginning, as are all of my children, yet still his birth scared me. I had to call everyone and tell them that I was in labor, but the only person I could get a hold of was Mike. Of course, he came straight home. Carolyn had forgotten her phone at home, and Mom was out of range. At any rate, I finally reached everyone, and they all came. Mom and Dad stayed with Hannah and Gabe, and Mike and Carolyn took me to the hospital. After confirming that I was in labor, although just beginning, they admitted me to the labor and delivery. When I went in with him around 5 p.m., I was dilated to 2 centimeters. Just before they sent me to the delivery room, I was already between 4 and 5. Now, remember I said this was February 6th, Gabriel's birthday. Wow, what a birthday present. I was still scared, but the thought of having my 2 sons' birthdays on the same day excited me. I suddenly wanted him born that day. Initially, I was hoping they would stop my labor and try to hold Garrett off for at least 3 to 5 days. I knew, though, when they said I was dilating that quickly that it wasn't going to happen. At that point, I strongly wanted him born the same day as Gabe. I am so thankful now that he wasn't. So this was it. I was going to be a mommy again for the 3rd time. This is when all of my fear of having him left. I'm just going to stop for a second. I want to keep it real, and what's more real than your kids? Pardon me. Please stop making noise. Okay? So, it's life, folks. It's life, right? We grieve, we live through it, and life keeps going. That's a college thing to say. But this is where I'm at 13 years later. I'm going to back up here. So I am so thankful now that he wasn't. So this was it. I was going to be a mommy again for the third time. That is when all of my fear of having him left. I don't think I even noticed when it happened. The fear just kind of melted away, and excitement and joy filled its place. I look back now and think about it and rejoice that I didn't hold on to that fear. I have so little with my baby that I want to cherish what I do have and not look back with regret and guilt. I feel guilty enough for the way I felt about having Garrett all the way through my pregnancy. I knew all too well the realities of the situation. I knew that Mike would be the only one allowed in the room when I delivered. I learned that I would only have just minutes to hold Garrett before they started all of the testing and medicinal lines right away. I knew that the beginning of Garrett's outside life would not be the same as my other two babies. Yes, I knew all of that, and yet all I could think about was the push. There is no other feeling there is no other feeling so exhilarating as that last push. All I could think about at that time was that physical feeling when I gave that last push and Garrett slid from my body. The tremendous feeling of relief. Not relief that he was out, or that it was all over. I'm talking about the experience of pushing that chubby little body from my womb. The way that I can physically feel him released from my body to be placed in my arms. It is said that labor is painful and indescribable, and that is true. I really don't have the words to explain the pain of childbirth, and I know that each woman's experience is different. It is said that the pain, while intense, is quickly forgotten. Now I know that is not true. I remember the pain of each child I have delivered. That pain is never forgotten. Now I say all that to say this. Yes, the pain is intense, and to some point unbearable. Enter stage left, my friend, the anesthesiologist, epidural in hand. Though not forgotten, it all just goes away the minute I give that last push and that screaming, messy bundle of baby chub is placed in my arms. To say that it is all worth it is such an understatement. It is all worth it. All of the pain and discomfort and irritability. There is no greater joy than when they place that sweet, beautiful baby in my arms. There is no greater gift outside of my salvation than the gift of my children's lives. There is no greater responsibility from God than the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being of my babies. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and stop. The book that I've written is around 60, 66, 68 pages, something like that. And I want to break it down into installments. I've read through the first 8 pages of the book, and I hope that you'll want to continue this journey. I hope you'll take the time to stay with me to the end. And I hope that what I have to offer is what will help you get through maybe another day, maybe your season of grief. If I can be a help to you at all, let me. So, alrighty folks, we've come to the end of our story, but not the end of our journey. Keep your heads up and stay inspired.